everyone, and welcome to the Knighted Ones podcast, episode number 3. That's right, number 3. We've already bored you with 4.5 hours worth of content, so we're going to give you some more. We are the only podcast that features a former UCF National Champion, a former UCF radio host, and several podcasters shooting the breeze, trying to keep their lapels up and having a great time. So welcome to this week's show. I'm going to bring the team in. We'll start off with Josh. Oh, no, we won't. Josh complains, so I'm going to bring him in last. We'll go with Alan first. Hey, Alan.
Hey, Roger. How's it going?
Good, man. Welcome to the show after a hard-fought W. We'll bring in Tre Neal next. What's up, Tre Neal?
What's up, guys? How you doing?
Good, man. We got to come up with a nickname for you. I just want to call you Trizzle all the time or something. I don't know. So we got to come up with nicknames as we kind of do the show. I got my Night Bangle handle, but that's not really a nickname. Just keep it clean if we can. And Josh Lazar without a collar this week. What is happening, Josh Lazar?
Is that why I didn't complain? I don't know what you're talking about. what are we doing?
You always get me in last.
I'm just wearing an 8-year-old, 9-year-old T-shirt. That's all. No collars today.
You know what's funny? Like I have one too, but I had one of the what he's wearing, folks. For those of that are listening as a podcast, is a 2014 Tostitos Fiesta Bowl Nightmare T-shirt. So obviously definitely a fashion trend there. I had one of those, but the cotton T-shirt version, and my daughter requisitioned it, and so now she wears it. One thing you'll learn, it doesn't matter if you're a father or a mother, apparently your daughter will requisition your wardrobe. So she has her own UCF stuff. Trust me, I've spent enough money with UCF to probably fund the entire NIL program. But she still wants to take my stuff. So excited about that. Welcome back to the show. We survived the Smurf turf somehow. Well, some of us survived it. Others did not. We're 2-0. So we got Villanova coming up here pretty soon. So excited about that, sort of. Let's start with, I think what we're going to do is we're going to change things around a little bit this week. And what we're going to do is we're going to take the text talk segment and put it at the top of the program before we actually review the shows, or the games, excuse me, not the shows. And, so I'm going to go around the horn here with the guys and let them tell me what their favorite texts were in our group chat during the game. And also as a reminder, or actually not as a reminder, but more of a preview, we're going to be doing something with AI and text messages coming up soon. So who knows what'll happen? We'll might see. Take over the world. Maybe we can give ourselves a national championship because Alabama certainly isn't winning one this year. But let's start with the text talk. So I'm going to start in the top right-hand corner. Alan Levin, what are your 2 favorite texts from our group chat? Remember, keep it clean.
Yeah, so I liked one of the texts that came in was regarding our awesome kicker, Colton Boomer, kiss moms and kicking bombs after he nailed the game winner, because that was great. Just feels like with that long blonde hair, that just kind of describes him great. And I thought, Roger, you got a good one when you said this was not our litmus test game. We whooped them physically and we should be winning big. I thought that was a really good point that made sense. We were clearly the bigger team. We just had some uncharacteristic mistakes in the game and should have won the game bigger. So I agree that a non-conference game against Boise probably isn't a litmus test, even though it was a good win.
Awesome. Josh Lazar, moving on to you next.
Sure. There was different times in the game. One of the things I wrote was, I hope we're not going to pull a Clemson, because we've had and the second thing that I thought was good was I didn't have, quote, multiple tip drills in the red zone as poison of the week.
Oh my gosh.
They both work the same way. it looked like Clemson just kind of sort of gave it away multiple times while we were recording live, right, on the podcast. And Duke just, took it over. And yeah, you felt in the game, we'll probably talk about this later, you felt in the game like we should up it, like Roger, what you said, we up a lot more than we are, but we only led one quarter. So those are a couple things that I was.
Hey, we led the most important quarter, and what I really want to know is, Tre, has a wide receiver ever handed you the ball in the end zone like Javon Baker did for the Boise State crew? I mean, it was just
man.
It was almost like a half.
I wish I could get something that easy. That was a free one right there for the pass.
I mean, it was like right there. I was like, oh my gosh.
Exactly.
How could that happen? Twice.
Yeah.
Not
Twice.
once, twice.
Those are the ones. I mean, we talked about it. We'll get into it later, but like tips and overthrows, man, that was one of our mantras just going through my years. Because those are the freebies. Those are the ones that the quarterback wants to make a mistake or the receiver wants to make a mistake. You have to get those. Those are the free ones. Some of the other ones we talked about where the DBs make good plays on the ball, but you can't drop the free ones. I mean, the way Javon Baker, he's like, your dinner is served. Here you go. Like it was right to him. So
it wasn't even a tip drill. It was more like a handoff. It was like,
exactly.
Like, here you go.
Yeah.
But
my two would be from kind of with Alan and Josh. So during the games, especially if we start off slow, I'm pissed. So just to see, like, 'cause I saw it was Houston is down 14 to Rice. I was like, oh, that actually makes me feel a little bit better. Like, it's one of those things that kind of keeps the spirits up. And then another one, it was me no likey this start. Like those texts kind of make me laugh. And it keeps me just because I get mad really easily. Well, when it comes to the UCF, I get really mad easily. So those kind of texts they just keep me like, all right, just relax, man. It's a little funny. So I like those two texts specifically.
Yeah, I will tell you this. I made another joke about Dana Holgorsen. I don't know. I think he's going to be on the hot seat here pretty soon unless he turns it around. Because that Rice game, I said last week, I think it was, where I said the only thing that Houston's showing us is Holgorsen's bald spot. And they backed that up this week again. So sorry, Holgie. You got to do better. I mean, and I have a feeling that with everything that's going on right now, you're in the Big 12. Houston has some boosters, which is why they're in the Big 12. So they will not be afraid to pull the trigger. And, he'll be fired twice out of the Big 12. So he was fired from West Virginia U, and then he'll be fired from Houston. So good luck to Holgorsen. Never want to see a coach lose his job. But for this season, I'm happy about it because we will play Houston.
And that game was not tight at the beginning. It was 28-0 Rice. JT Daniels is the quarterback there, but I was watching it on like 8 screens. I did a new thing with my TV setup, and I was just, my jaw was on the floor of how bad they were getting beat to start. And then, it ended up in overtime, but 28-0 is pretty far down.
Well, back-to-back tough games for Houston. So the Cougars are fangless right now, or toothless, or clawless, or whatever you want to do, whatever you want to say. They're just they're couging it, as we used to say. But that's all right. So moving on from the Cougs' woeful play, let's talk a little bit about Boise State. So last week, and we'll talk about our predictions last week. I don't think any of us expected it to be a 10-9 score at half. I don't think any of us predicted that. And realistically speaking, it wasn't because there wasn't yards being put up or the offenses weren't moving the ball. It was they did that fairly well. In fact, we came out and threw that long bomb right off the rip. I mean, first throw, 49 yards. It was like, okay, so this is Hinshaw trying to make a statement that we're going to, go vertical. And we absolutely went vertical. And it was a tale of two halves, really, on the offense, because I think we finished at the half. It was like 11 yards per play. right? And 11 or 12 per attempt, which is much higher than what it was last year, which was 6 to 7 yards for both quarterbacks, Mikey Keene and for JRP. And we moved the ball. We used the middle of the field. You know, we were able to run the ball. It was pretty good, pretty sweet watching that offense rack up the yards. And then we had the 2 issues in the red zone. And then the second half, we kind of came out and said, well, screw this. We're going to play like an SEC football school and lean on our run game and just out muscle them. So you saw by the end of the game that the average yards per attempt went down to something like 8 or 9, which is still better than last year. But it was because we ran it down their throat for most of the game. So and quite literally wore them out. I mean, that was, you know, we talked about for years at UCF about our ability to survive, you know, a football game with a P5, and that we would be ahead and then all of a sudden or competitive. And then in the second half, our guys would wear out and we didn't have the depth to be able to handle it. And, you know, this is us doing this to other schools now. So this is a P4 power team playing on the football field. And it was pretty amazing to watch. I mean, we just ran over them. We out-muscled them. I think I sent in our text chat, I sent a text message where I said, beginning of the second half, Boise's linebackers already had their hands on their hips. Our guys didn't. But theirs sure did, right? And we were worried about the altitude and all that other stuff. But we straight up wore them out. I think there was like 4 or 5 injured Boise players. I think 3 of them were put out of the game. Our guys were just beating them up in the second half. So it was definitely a tale of 2 halves, a lot of frustration. I know I was yelling a couple times. I was watching with my son this weekend. And he's like, Dad, don't worry about it. And I kept telling everybody on the text chat, we're going to win this game. Like, there's no way we're not going to win this game, right? We were moving the ball at will. The defense was stopping Boise. We put their quarterback out. They had some freshman quarterback in there. And Helani was out. And then we injured Crow. And it was just, we were going to win the game. I had no doubt in my mind. So, all that being said, let's dig into the details a little bit. First bullet item was the JRP injury and his performance. So, guys, Alan, I'm going to start with you. What are your thoughts on JRP's performance? And we'll kind of, after the performance, we'll go back to the injury.
Yeah, overall, I actually put this on my page. I think that was one of his best performances in a UCF uniform. Statistically, that didn't show, obviously, with no touchdown passes and 2 picks, but we know those picks weren't his fault. Those were deflections or drop passes that, as Tre said, went right into Boise defenders' hands. But I actually thought that was one of his best games. He was, first of all, as like you had mentioned, his PFF score is a 90, which rates as excellent. I thought he was efficient. I thought he didn't choose to rely on his legs as he typically does. He was making really good reads, really good progressions, and he made some great passes right at the start of the game. Overall, I thought that one of the best stats was on deep balls, which are considered 20 plus yards. He was 4 for 6 for 117 yards. So he was really efficient deep. And just overall, I mean, he had an efficient game. I thought he led the offense really well in a way that I hadn't seen him do yet. We had no problem driving, and maybe, like you said, it was just we were bigger than Boise and we bullied them a little bit, but I thought he was really composed in the pocket and he made a lot of just really clean, great passes. I mean, we're talking about if those 2 interceptions don't happen, we're probably saying this is like JRP's best ever game, maybe outside of that Temple game when he had 7 total touchdowns in the game and tied a UCF all-time record for TDs in a game. But overall, I thought this was definitely one of his best performances. I thought it was from his arm at least was outstanding, and he still did good on the ground with 11 carries for 70 something yards. So overall, I thought it was a fantastic game from him, and I thought he looked what we were hoping he would look like this season. And the plays that were being called for him from Hinshaw, I thought catered to those improvements that he supposedly had made over the offseason. So I was really pleased with pretty much everything he did. I mean, there was a couple things here and there. Maybe he could have slid faster, obviously, like on that injury play or whatever. But in general, I thought he made great passes, and his deep ball looked really good. And like I said, 4 for 6, 117 yards there. So that, almost, was almost 50% of his stuff came from deep plays. So I was really pleased with his performance.
All right. So let's say this about that too. Okay. That injury, well, before we move on, the injury play, that was targeting. Like,
yes.
Period.
Yes.
Like, I was yelling it. Like, that was 100% targeting.
Yeah.
Like, there's no doubt about it. There's no way that should not have been called, even after they went back and reviewed it. It's like, really? How is that not targeting? We've been throwing players out for 3 years or more. I don't remember if it's 3 or 4
Dude,
years.
I almost got thrown out.
Yeah, I remember that.
In the Peach Bowl for the same kind
that's
of play.
right. That's
but
right.
The only reason I stayed in was because I hit him with the shoulder. But he literally hit him, led with his head, hit him with the head. I don't know
and
how.
launched. He pushed
on
off.
Mountain West referees.
That's self-explanatory to me. I don't know how they blew that one.
Yeah, I don't either. I mean, that just, there's no way on God's green earth that should not have been a targeting call.
Yeah.
And that guy, he was
defenseless.
Like he was sliding. His legs were in front of him. His butt was heading towards the ground. It wasn't like he was making a football move, right? He was by definition defenseless.
Yeah.
By definition defenseless. There's no way that should not have been called. I'm sorry. If Gus isn't, and I think I made this comment too, if Gus is not like talking to the NCAA this week, he's not doing his job, because that was an atrocious call. I've seen some bad ones, but that one,
he for sure. He for sure should have sent that. He should have sent that in before he went to sleep that night.
I mean,
that's atrocious.
Crown in the helmet, right in the ear hole. I mean, you can't get any more textbook than that.
Yeah.
So anyway, all right. Now that I've got that out of my system, Tre, let's go with you next.
Yeah, I mean, I thought JRP played phenomenal. I thought he played, like Alan was saying, he was efficient, that's all we've ever asked for, just efficient quarterback play. And the throws that we wanted to see him make that he didn't make last year, he was making this year. If you just look at the stats, it might have been, he played all right. But, us watching the game every play, some of us rewatching the game, he played very efficient. Those 2 interceptions, obviously they weren't on him. But again, if those 2 interceptions ended drives in the red zone, and I think that's the worst part. You're talking about a maximum, maybe a 14-point swing. And I think if we get those early, I think we blow them out by 30, 40. And that's what I think we should have done. And you look at the stats and the numbers, they really couldn't stop us offensively. I mean, like you said, they ran the ball. We ran the ball down their throat, leaned on them a lot, and they were wore out in the second half. So, I mean, what were you saying? I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I agree with you about the point spread being a lot higher, because it's like we talked about last week. I don't know if you guys remember about my diatribe on on what I thought, needed to happen for this week. And if we got them behind early, they did not have the passing game to be able to keep up. Yeah. Green is not a good passing quarterback. And we saw that. And granted, he was hobbled after a while, but he still is not a good passing quarterback. His strength is in his legs. And, if we would have gotten on top by 2 or 3 scores, I mean,
we blow them out.
It's over with. I mean, that would have been a 50, 60 point game. Yeah,
exactly. And that was my thing. That's why I don't see it as a bad thing, because it's not like the mistakes were false starts, knocking us out of field goal range, knocking us out of red zones, bad play calling. I didn't really see that. It was just unfortunate turnovers. I mean, you can knock the receiver and say, hey, catch the ball, but I mean, okay, catch the ball, that's it, move forward with it. Those are just the inconvenient kind of timely turnovers that you don't want. If you were on defense and got them, those are the ones you do want. That's the things you do. But I thought the offense looked very sharp. I thought JR played very well. And like Alan was saying, I don't think I think this is what the JRP that we wanted to see. The second year progression, going through reads, making smart decisions, and then making those shots and taking those deep shots. I think that's what we felt was lacking in the offense last year, and I think we saw that. Sucks that, he's going to miss a few games to what we've been told, because now we kind of have to put that on the back end and, get into Timmy, which we'll talk about him later. But overall, I thought he played well. And I think that's all you can ask for him in this stage of his progression.
All right. Josh Lazar, what are your thoughts on JRP's performance?
This is – it was so good. And we all know those two – well, you're right. It's not a tip drill, right? But darn near close. If not but for that, it would have been huge. JRP did a great job. End of statement. We can move on from that. Anyone who thinks,
all right, great, moving on.
Yeah,
you weren't curious.
Well, one last thing. Coach Hinshaw was talking about us going deep more often, and maybe some people think we are not. But JRP did phenomenal in deep throws. Phenomenal deep throws in this game. And again, we all know about the 2 interceptions, but that's being backed up not only by the play calling, but by how JRP was hitting them. And allegedly, from people who've seen more than I have, Timmy's pretty good at that too. Like, you hear it in the coach and some of the coach talks that Timmy throws a great deep ball. So, JRP did everything he needed to do to win. To me, he proved that he has improved. And honestly, I think everything we kept hearing this season about Hinshaw and going deeper and being more vertical is actually happening. And we're seeing it, and I love it.
All right. So did you just say Hinshaw?
Hinshaw.
Hinshaw. I thought you said Hinshaw. Okay, my bad.
It's a good nickname for him.
Yeah, there you go, because he's him. All right, so let's talk a little bit about JRP from my seat. Okay, so official stats: 16-24, 66.6% completion percentage, with at least 4 drops. Okay, without those 4 drops, which were catchable balls and not questionable balls or whatever, you're talking about 83%. Okay, 83% completion percentage. Okay, 73 yards. His passing attempts, 11.3 per attempt, 11.3 yards per attempt. That means he's throwing deep balls, right? We are absolutely being aggressive. The first half, we were aggressive with our passing downs, 100%. And I think we got Boise on their heels. I mean, they were not expecting us to come out on the very first drive, on the very first snap, to throw a 49-yard bomb. So we 100% did that. We also had less motion in the backfield with screens and all that stuff. We used the middle of the field. We used multiple levels of the field. JRP found holes when safety coverage was soft. In last year, we weren't doing that. If they could afford to bring the safety up and have a soft coverage in the back, because they were not afraid of JRP throwing it in the middle of the field. He had 3 long passes there. Okay. We were able to slide our running back out. Right. And yes, we hit him in stride. Like Harvey, he caught one and he had to adjust to the other side of his body, but still it was right where he needed it to be for him to catch it. JRP would have put it on the other side. The defender was coming from that same direction. He might've got a little more yak, but, at the end of the day, by and large, this was 100% progression on JRP's part. You saw what the offense was able to do. We played, I mentioned it earlier, we played 2 different halves of football, okay, realistically speaking. And to Alan's point, the long ball was there as well, which we just haven't had, right? So overall, I mean, the offense actually scored better in this game than they did against Kent State, right? 80.1 on PFF versus 75.4. So in spite of the fact that we scored as few points as we did, which was just enough to win, this offense actually performed better than it did against Kent State when we dropped 56 on them. So we moved the ball. We ran the ball. We were able to pass the ball. Sometimes we could catch the ball. And we defended well. So, all in all, this game to me, offensively, was one of our best games that we've had in 2 years because we were able to truly mix and hurt them with our legs and our long ball. Whereas before it was maybe medium range or hitting running backs coming out of the backfield, creating that yardage. This game, we truly were able to mix it up and hurt people's secondaries. So, the one big thing that we did struggle with, and that was we were 1 for 6 going into the half, was third down conversions. We ended up 4 out of 10, which 40% statistically actually isn't bad. 530 yards versus 384, 272 passing, 258 rushing. Okay. So, and we attempted a lot more rushing, but that was because the second half, we put the ball on the ground and we shoved it down their throats because we knew we could run on them and we could run clock because we were hurting ourselves and we did not
Volleyball.
Another turnover, right? Time of possession, 28 minutes. We actually had, again, and Gus talked about it all offseason because he was worried about close games, right, in the Big 12 and going into the Big 12. We 100% worked that 2-minute offense to perfection again this week. And for those of you that were out there complaining about JRP never having won us a game, right, when he had to score, he did that this week as well, 100%. In spite of being hobbled, in spite of being hurt, in spite of everything that was going on, he did that this week. So, I feel like hopefully everybody feels like I do. Offensively, I feel like we're in a good spot. The injury. Got a lot more information about the injury this week. No surgery required. Expecting 3 to 4 weeks for him to be out. I'm guessing, and what it looked like to me was a groin because his leg on that hit kind of stuck in the turf. Yep. And he kind of overextended or like no tears supposedly. So I'm guessing he strained his groin or something like that, the way that his leg kind of got stuck there. Green slipped on one. We had Holler slip on one. We had Richardson slip on one. And I can tell you, I've played on turf. It is not easy to play on turf, and it hurts.
Yes.
All of those times that you get hit and you fall to the ground, it hurts. So, I hope we play more green grass and less turf. And Josh, I think you had something to say about that, didn't you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I all these conferences are getting tons of money. P4, P3 maybe in the future are getting tons and tons of money. I would love nothing more than whether it's from the athletes themselves or the university themselves to say, all right, no more turf. We're done. You're making enough money to have grass fields for all sports. Forget just football. But of course, football is going to pave the way, if you will. We should all be playing on grass. I'm not the athlete here. My athleticism is in bowling, right? Always hard. I am not a former football player. I lasted about, a game or a practice or two. But I know what it feels like to fall on turf just as a human being, and it is not fun. I couldn't imagine being pounded into it. So every single conference should mandate grass fields for all sports, especially football. That's what should be done. You're making enough money. If you want to talk about protecting athletes and you want to actually speak it, that's a pretty easy way to do it. It's not, is it expensive? Yeah, but you're making $50 to $100 million a year. It can't be that expensive. Yeah.
Not everybody. The ACC's not making that.
Well, I said Power 3, right? But, right, this shouldn't be an argument. Like this really should just be a given. But that's just me. I maybe I'm passionate about it because like it seems like the clearest, easiest thing you can do that doesn't cost it costs less than a head coach, right? I mean,
you're not lying about that.
So I mean, let's do something that I guarantee you every athlete would love nothing more to never play on turf again.
Yeah, exactly. And kind of like what you were saying, it's just, when do you stop putting business before the athletes? You know, we were talking a little bit off air probably last week how student athlete isn't what people think student athlete means. I mean, we can go into, I don't want to go into this super far rabbit hole, but it's not student athlete like you think, like, oh, you know, you guys are focused on your grades, blah, blah, blah. We do put a lot of effort into, you know, school, but everything is based around why we're on scholarship, whether that's football, whether that's basketball, softball, women's sports, all of it. You know, we can't go choose whatever major we want. We can't take whatever class we want. It's all based around our football schedule. It's based around our softball schedules. It's based around soccer. Like that's what it is. And then we're putting in all these extra hours to be great on the days that we do it. You know, why shouldn't we get the simple things that keep us healthy? You know, not necessarily asking for the extra amenities like, you know, oh, I want this type of protein shake. That can be just a little bit, you know, that's just extra. But, you know, if guys are getting hurt, which a lot of lower leg injuries happen when you're on turf, that's just the numbers. Why do we keep playing on turf? And like you said, even I know that they're doing it in some softball and baseball stuff just because it's cheaper. You don't have to really have maintenance on it. You just kind of have little checks every here and there to make sure it's playable. But yeah, I think that's
wasn't it the Cows or Houston that did that on baseball this past year?
I'm not sure.
I know we have it on a
football field though.
We have we do. We had a portion of it on our baseball field, but it's not anywhere where the athletes would be running.
Yeah.
Right?
I think softball has it in like the foul territory.
Yeah.
But because again, it's how rare are they really playing in foul territory? A little bit, but nothing like a whole football field where you're playing on that. That's where you see a lot of like ACLs, MCLs, groins, all those lower body injuries. A lot of the time happen because your foot gets stuck in the ground and you're trying to make a violent cut or a violent movement and your body just can't take that. I think that's just, again, business. When are you going to put the business before the athlete?
It's physical.
It already's there, Trey.
Yeah, I know.
And by the way, we have a nutrition center. You can have whatever protein shakes you want.
Yeah. Luckily, I wasn't there, man. I wish I would have had
that. All I'll say is that it is cheaper, but there's a cost. And the cost isn't fiscal. It's physical.
Exactly.
And that's the problem. That is the. But yeah, that I know this is going.
That's a whole nother argument. Yeah, that's a whole other argument.
But
dude, if I had a radio set up right now, I'd be like dropping the "Let's get physical."
I have some drops going in, but here the reality is we're talking about this because it just happened to our QB. Right.
Yep.
And frankly,
we were no. Hold on. We've been talking about this for a long time, actually. Okay. Tre and I, even on Nightline, the previous show we were on, we would talk about it on there too, because we played on turf, and Tulane is turf, and even if you hit your shoulder on the ground, it's concrete with a layer, and they've got more layers now than they used to.
Not when I was a kid, man. AstroTurf.
Yeah, no.
It was concrete and like carpet. That was it.
Yeah,
pretty much. Shoes. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's not just. I mean, yes, you're getting caught with it, at least with the ground, even like frozen ground when you're playing up north. And Tre knows all about this. When you're playing in the cold, it's hard. Like, and it's much harder when you hit the ground, right? But the difference is, your cleat, the cleats that they use on it are different, and they will come out of that without like carpet. Like, I'm going to call it carpet, AstroTurf carpet.
Pretty much is carpet. Yeah.
AstroTurf, Smurf turf, the Smurf turf like when your cleat starts to come back out of it, it can get caught. And that's when you see what's happening because there's give as it's pulling out, right? But you don't have that on ground, on traditional turf. You just don't. Even if it's cold or frozen or whatever, having played on both, Tre's played on both surfaces. You know, it's terrible. And it's going to lead to injuries. It leads to injuries every year. I think even didn't the NFL come out with something saying that you either had to use a certain type of turf, which is now different than what the old turf is, or no turf at all.
I think that's why the Giants and the New York team, I think they just switched their turf because of that.
Yeah.
Because again, guys, especially in the NFL, you don't want any of your guys you're playing, you know, tens of millions of dollars going down because that's tanking your ticket sales, that's tanking everything. But yeah, I mean, again, I think it's just.
Well, I mean, in college, we're paying some of these guys millions of dollars too.
Which that's why, again, that's another thing. You got to start taking care of these athletes, you know. NIL, again, it's a whole different world, you know. I mean, I couldn't imagine, like, we're going to, just realistically, people like to go watch JRP play football, you know, as much as people have critiques of him, of whatever. He's very exciting to watch. You know, he is showtime as far as making highlight plays and splash plays. That's what he does. And it kind of like, again, like Mackenzie Milton. It's just different when you don't have those guys, and it sucks to lose them to injuries that are avoidable in the sense with JRP. Mackenzie's are just freak, but with JRP, I feel like those kind of things are a little bit avoidable. With just having grass versus turf.
All right, so let me say this about that. This is our grinds our gears segment that's impromptu, right? Old men yelling at clouds. You know, that's what this is right now, people. And I'm sorry if you're having to listen to it, but you know, it's something that's important, right? It's something that's important because I want to bring this up too. I got a text message from a buddy of mine, and it said after the game that there were people actually out there on a certain Facebook group that we all know well. And let me say this disclaimer. Don't take anything in Facebook seriously, folks, because it's terrible. That being said, either wishing or glad that JRP got injured because you're wanting to see Timmy McClain or saying comments like that, you are so wrong in what you're saying and what you're doing. Nobody should be hoping that anybody gets injured. I don't even wish that on the Cows. You know what I mean? As much as I dislike the directionally challenged school from the west of Florida, you know, I do not wish any of their players any harm. Yeah. It's college athletics. I played athletics. I wouldn't want someone to wish that on me. I wouldn't want to wish that on anybody else. They're out there playing for their school. No matter how you feel about them, you know, they're out there doing that and having an injury like that either if they've got NFL dreams, they have the possibility to do that, especially these seniors, you're taking away game film, right? So don't wish that on anybody. And if you are doing that, you're absolutely wrong. Okay. And, you know, just stop it. And it's our own player, by and large. Someone who seems to be, you know, a pretty good dude, you know, no matter what you think of him as a football player. So don't wish that on anybody. I mean, Tre, Mackenzie's injury, what did you think? I mean, that was caused by a Cow player, right? Yep. And what did you think of that? I mean, it was it was dirty and it wasn't at the same time. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And again, preface, we put in so many hours just to perform, you know, just to give you guys a good product. I've talked to, you know, Roger about it off air. You know, we don't want to be bad football players. You know, we don't want to be bad anything at what we're doing. We try to do our best.
The Cows do not want to be bad?
As much as I do not like them, they do not try to be bad at football. You know, I think those guys, they just are. Yeah. And that's just very unfortunate circumstance. You know, for whatever reason. But again, like even when guys that we were playing get hurt, we play a violent game. And mind you, we play to be violent. It's not like we're not trying to be violent. We want to be violent, but we don't ever want to intentionally cause pain, injury to somebody to where they can't play. We want to play the sport how it's supposed to be played, which is fast, physical, but we don't want to, hurt anybody, kill anybody, nothing like that. So if we don't even want to do it and we're the ones that are risking it, why would fans want that for their own players? To me, I've never understood that. I think it's really trashy. I don't think anybody should wish injury or bad health to anybody. So I don't understand why anybody would do that.
100% agree with that. And I'll say this, as a defender, there's no better feeling in the world than knocking somebody clean on their clean, right, on the show. No better feeling in the world than just getting a really good hit and stuffing somebody, right?
Yep.
However, even I as a defender didn't want to injure somebody when I played. So exactly. And that was the time when we were able to hit the defenseless receivers over the center.
That was before targeting wasn't a thing. That was just called tackling.
Yep, that was called separating the player from the ball.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yep,
that's what we did back then. That's why I have all this hair on the top of my head so I can cushion the CTE. But that being said, that as a defender, that's the best feeling in the world. But never did I ever want to injure somebody.
Mm-hmm.
So. All right, we're moving on from that. Timmy McClain, new QB1. What are we thinking of new QB1, former Cal player, former Sanford High School player? What do we think about Timmy McClain as QB1? Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I'll start off. I don't know too much about him. I think we're kind of I'm going to be interested to see what they show and allow him to do versus Villanova. I think that'll tell us where he's at. Is it going to be a kind of a year one JRP thing where it's just, one read, check down, run? Because he's very athletic, from what I've been told, from what we hear through camp. Or is it going to be like we just seen? I think he sat out last year, but he played a lot as a freshman at USF. And this is his third year.
It's Cal.
Cal U. Sorry.
Or we will also accept the directionally challenged school from West Central Florida.
Yeah.
Or the former bombing range masquerading as a university. Okay.
But yeah, I think it's year 3. It should be his second year, I believe, in the system, depending on how much he was getting last year. But I think the Villanova game will be telling. I think if it's very vanilla, which it all very much could be, I think that's where we're going to kind of see just, hey, make it easy and just rely on athleticism. Or, if he's going through progressions, I think that could be a good thing. But I really don't have enough information as far as what I've seen him play, because it's been, I think, 2 years now, and he was a freshman, with the expectations of that. So it'll be interesting, I think. I know he's athletic to what I've heard, though.
Alan, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm excited about Timmy. I mean, Coach Malzahn said today that he was brought here for this precise reason. Coach Malzahn made a concerted effort to go get him in the transfer portal, and he did that for a reason. And Timmy was named QB2 for a reason. And he's a dual threat quarterback. He can rush the ball. He, like Josh said, he does have a pretty long ball. His freshman year wasn't great. I mean, he threw for, just over 1,800 yards, had 5 touchdowns and 7 picks. So, not the best statistically, but, Tre, like you said, he was a true freshman, thrown into a bad situation on a bad team.
Terrible.
But he showed, but he showed glimpses. I mean, one of those glimpses
so it's almost like being drafted by like the Browns or something, right? I mean, pretty
something
much
like that.
White.
Yeah, exactly.
Or Jacksonville.
Yeah. Well,
they ruined Blake Bortles. They'll be dead to me forever.
Jacksonville previously.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, he was brought here for this, reason. Like I said, his freshman year wasn't great, but he showed glimpses. And one of those glimpses was against us in the 2021 War on I-4. He had a pretty damn good game and almost won it for them. So, he's an athlete, and they've talked about how much he improved, not only in his redshirt season, where he was on the scout team and, performed pretty well there. And then this offseason, they talked about him making one of the biggest leaps in fall camp. So if you're to take the coaches at their word, I think, it's exciting to see what he can do. We've had a little over a year of JRP, but Timmy is a dual threat guy. And even in that first game against Kent State, I know it was mop up duty, but he went 3 for 5. He moved the offense down the field. Obviously, it was probably against like second teamers and things like that, but he looked efficient. He looked good. So I think we should be excited about him. And he's really athletic. I've seen some tape of him. He's definitely that catches your eye when you're looking, is his athleticism. And the great thing is he gets a tune-up game against an FCS school to come in. I like that. It's kind of what we saw when Dylan Gabriel went down a few years ago. Mikey Keene kind of had, well, it was supposed to be a tune-up game against Navy. It ended up not being one. But this,
same principle.
Right, same principle, and this is an FCS school. The offense may be vanilla, but I think we're going to be looking for certain things. How well does he move the offense down the field? You're going to be able to see, even if though it's against a bad team, we're going to see how he looks. We're going to see his chemistry with the receivers. I know he's got some zip on his ball, and I know that he can run and take off with his legs. So really, when you think about Gus Malzahn or Darren Hinshaw's offense, it's kind of he kind of mirrors JRP in a lot of different ways. So I think going from him from JRP to Timmy McClain makes a lot of sense. I think they can both fit this playbook really well, and I think we should all be excited about him. I don't think we're and the thing I love most is like when Dylan Gabriel went down, Mikey Keene was thrown into the fire as a true freshman. There's not a lot of times where you get your backup quarterback who's been a starting quarterback for an entire season already. So that experience, I think, is going to come into play. Maybe he'll have to wear knock the rust off after not playing for nearly 2 years. But the fact that he started 11 or 12 games and has real FBS experience already, I think that's a huge win for us compared to having to start like Dylan Risk, for example, who hasn't, obviously has never played a down in college football before. So to get someone like Timmy with his experience, and by all accounts, sounds like he made a huge progressions in his game and is a dual threat that can fit this offensive playbook, I say that's good. I mean, obviously, you never want to lose your QB1, but when you have a seemingly very talented QB2, I think it's great. And let's go out there and get them knock the rust off against Villanova before we have our first ever Big 12 game the following week.
Awesome. Good recap on that. Josh, what do you think?
This is a far drop from dropping him on that 2021 game.
Drop.
Got triple drop in, right? Here's the deal. I really think I loved what I saw in the Kent State game. I know it was Kent State. I know it was in garbage time. But he was poised. He was confident. His throws were maybe a little hard. Maybe some Holman throws.
Just going to say that Holman.
Yeah, right.
Lasers.
Yeah, they were lasers, but they were good. They were timely. He ran, and I don't think he ran when it wasn't an appropriate time to run, right? Like, he ran with purpose. I'm really excited. I'm excited to see what he can do. I'm not excited because of why it's happening, right? Yeah. But I do think, right? I think he's going to excel. I really do. And the worst case scenario is that JRP has a sprained or strained something, is going to be normal JRP, and we have in the bag someone who can come in for any reason and will be great. We'll see how long he's forgetting Villanova. I think we see Rizek in that game, but I think once we go to Kansas State, is really going to be where we see it. But I just have a feeling we're going to see amazing stuff out of him this coming week. I really do.
All right. So here's my thing. And I'm going to say this about that. And I'm going to use a few more random euphemisms in everything that I'm saying now. Look, Timmy's got experience at the FBS level. I'm trying really hard not to say Timmy, but Timmy. Yeah,
just say Timmy.
Yeah, Hemi. Yeah, what is that? Is that what we're gonna do for everybody now? We're just gonna add him to everything. So we got Hinshaw, we got Hemi. No, but the guy was a good football player at the high school level. He was a good football player for you, Cal. You. He almost beat us his freshman year. He's got some wheels on him, and he's a big body, so he can withstand the hits. He's also got a really good arm. He's got a cannon for an arm. Now, touch passes, whole nother ball of wax. I think this actually feeds more into what Gus likes to play or would have wanted to play with other quarterbacks in the past. I think they're going to dial some things up for him that are different than what JRP's been working on. You've also heard Hinshaw preseason and earlier kind of get excited about him. So I honestly think that they don't feel that there's that much of a drop off from a potential perspective, right? There's another drop for Josh.
I know.
But but realistically speaking, he's not going to be JRP. He's not going to be as good as JRP because he hasn't played as long as JRP. The big knock on Timmy was his ability to learn the system. He is a great, just the same way with TC. He's a great, but he's also had a year in the system now. Now, he's a great guy for making things happen when plays break down. What I hope he doesn't do is just tuck and run too often because it's basically like what JRP was doing last year, right? Now, that being said, I don't think we see much of Timmy's possibilities this week against Villanova. If we do, then we're in a tough situation against Villanova. But the best case scenario would be for him to basically not put too much on film so that if he has to go for K-State, we have a bye week after that, and we go play at Oklahoma. That should give plenty of time for JRP to rest up, and we'd have a JRP versus DG battle. Showdown, sock down. But I just don't think we'll see that much from him this week. I do think he's got great athletic prowess. What I want to see from him when we play K-State is how well he's picked up the system. Because last year, you could tell, when he did make it in, he was a little bit lost. Early in this season, when he made it in for Kent State, he played well, and he's got a cannon of an arm. So he's got the tools. Let's see how and I'm glad we have like Villanova this week, right? Not K-State this week, because that'll give him an opportunity to play within the system. So I'm excited. I'm glad we have Timmy. I don't think there'll be a drop off from JRP, but I don't think it'll be huge. If that makes any big enough to be like, hey, we're going to lose a game with him. Not the difference between Green and the freshman quarterback that came in for him for Boise State, right? So that's what I think. We kind of talked about the drops already a little bit. It's just like, I don't know how you tighten that up because both guys had their hands on the ball, and Baker, I think, was worse even than Hudson's. But
then he came back and made a great catch later in the game. So
that one catch where he had that 50-50 ball, and then he tapped his foot, he contorted his body, and then tapped his foot back in, got his foot down. Phenomenal catch.
Yeah. Those are just concentration drops.
And he had that one other one too earlier before that one. But the thing of it is even Baker came out on his social media and said this isn't going to happen again. He had his Timmy Tebow moment. Wasn't crying, but he did say that he's going to do better. So I don't see. I saw a lot of nerves in that Boise game. We never really got fully going during that game and really hitting our stride. So I don't read too much into that. We'll see what happens. But that offense was clicking, and I'm loving seeing the long ball. Red zone woes. We kind of alluded to that. We got to score points.
Yep.
Now here's one thing, and I'm going to let you guys wax poetic on this. All the trick plays in the red zone. So that was a big topic of conversation. We were wildcatting it up more than like 3 or 4 times. We had Jordan McDonald wildcatting. We had 7. Why can't I think of Harvey? He was wildcatting. The one pass, he just sat on the ball too long. I think he was trying to get laces up to get his hand on it properly to pass. But you got to get rid of the ball. The guy was wide open. Even if you just like chuck it, you know what I mean? You don't have to have a perfect spiral. I mean, he was wide open. So what do you guys think about all of the non-traditional plays in the red zone? Were we just trying them out because we could, or, what do you think about that? And then Tre, what do you think from a defensive standpoint? I mean, like I said before, if we use McDonald too much in that wildcat and all he's going to do is run through the middle, then we got to use that on 1 and 2 yard plays, and that's it.
Yeah.
Because otherwise nobody's scared of it and nobody's going to get tricked and they're just going to stack the box.
Yeah. The thing with the wildcat is it's effective because the plays that they run with it, it's a lot of gap schemes, so a lot of power, a lot of guys pulling, a lot of motion. So a lot of the time is to mess up the eyes of the second level guys, the linebackers, safeties, to kind of fit wrong. But with Boise State, they were just kind of blitzing and saying, they're only running the ball out of this, so we might as well just get downhill faster. And they slipped a little bit of gaps, which is why they were getting. I think they stopped us twice on the with the wildcat issues. I think that's just an element of the game that that's always been a part of since Gus. I think it was the Wild Knight, or that might be the defense.
But what about that in the red zone? Like, I could understand on a goal line.
Yeah, so I don't like it in the red zone. So the reason I don't like it in the red zone is because you're essentially cutting your options in half. You can't throw the ball anymore. And you're just running. At least we haven't seen it.
We can, and we tried with Harvey, a former high school quarterback who did it last year.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that's Harvey. He can be a high school quarterback. He's a college running back. Like, so you're not. The opening.
He said, know your role, bro.
That's what he said. I say that. The reason why I say it is because the options in the pass game are so limited that it's real. I mean, you're really just trying to catch somebody off guard by passing. It's not like you're really scheming anything. You're just like, I hope they think, they're just running the ball and you catch them sleeping, which we did. It's just getting the ball off. So it's not really that. Like, so in the red zone, I'm just like, listen, as much as we don't want JRP to run, spread everybody out, which they did it before they called a timeout early. Spread everybody out, count the box, play the numbers game. If you have five hats on 5 hats, let JRP be the extra runner, get the 2 yards, and start it. Let's go. JRP is a phenomenal athlete. He's probably the best athlete on the field. He can make something out of nothing, especially if the numbers are there. So I don't really like it in the red zone.
Do you think that do you think they're doing that on short yardage situations to keep the hits off of him?
So that's the only thing that I could see. But in my opinion, it's
197 QB hits last season.
So that's the only thing is you want to save the hits. Which I understand it, but to me, it's just like, again, even with Timmy, like I would rather you bring Timmy in to run those plays. And I'm not just saying to use Timmy as a crasher's dummy, obviously, but he still can give you the same athleticism. I mean, people are saying he's a super athlete. He's fast. He's explosive. Do the same thing, go 5 wide, have Timmy count the box. If it's not there, throw a quick. There's going to be a numbers game somewhere. That's the benefit of having a running quarterback. You have the numbers game 99% of the time. So just do it with him. And that just even lets him get in the flow of things in case a situation like what happened where he gets hurt and now he's going to be playing. Now he's going to be able to do it. So I'm not really a fan of it in the red zone. On the goal line, I love it because it's hard to play sound defense on the goal line because you don't have a lot of room to air. 2 yard line, you miss one gap, that's the touchdown. You can kind of mess around with it in the red zone. I think. And
I'll say this
I also think we have too much talent to just go wildcat. If you get what I'm saying, we have Jawan Baker. We have a lot of guys.
Well, here's the other thing too that I'll say about that is like McDonald, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's one thing if we all know he's going inside, right?
Yeah.
But he had this one where it was 4th and 1, and it seems like I don't know if it's just me, but if it's almost like a delayed handoff the way that they're timing when he's actually starting to run downhill, and I think he's waiting for his blocks to.
He's letting the blocks, he's letting the blocks.
But all you have to do as a 6 foot, 220-pound running back is lean forward against the backs of your O linemen. So I would rather him on a 1-yard situation, snap the ball, get ahead of steam, and get going before the linebackers have time to crash down.
I'd almost just want it to be, hey, O-line, the second you hear my count, just explode off the ball. And Jordan, as soon as you get the ball, explode downhill like you're running through a brick wall. 99% of the time, they're not going to stop it because he's a big running back. He's like you said, 6 foot, 225, 230. You get him 5 yards head of steam. There's not a lot of people in the country that are going to stonewall him for 1 yard.
No.
A lot. It's not, football's not like that anymore. You really don't even have those kind of players, the Ray Lewis types on your rosters who are just straight A-gap run stuffers. There have to be a lot more versatile. So I'm with you on that. But I just, again, I hate it in the red zone because I feel like the playbook, the best thing for a defense is to know what's coming. When the playbook is so wide open, you could pass it on 4th and 2. You could go deep.
Flip a tight end out. Yeah, put somebody in
the tight end out. Yeah, there's so many options in the red zone at least because you have 20 yards, not just 2 yards. You can't really call the perfect play. You almost just blitz everything.
Well, I mean, even if you throw to your running back, right, he's going to have probably 6 yards just sitting there as the play develops. He catches the ball, he gets another 5 yards. Now you're down 10. Yeah,
exactly.
You're getting him in space because they're going to be looking for the corners, right? Because they're going to be worried about that. They're going to be on their heels trying to follow what's going on. You can introduce motion into that and then slip the running back out. You've got him into space because they're not going to have enough time in 20 yards to react to that.
Yeah, and that's my thing. Like you by going Wildcat, it's effective in a sense, but you're legitimately cutting out 75-80% of your playbook, probably more than that, because now you're taking out all of the pass options with the chance that you trick somebody like they did. Yeah. That's really the only pass plays you have in it. At least to my knowledge from what they do. I don't know if they really work on it a lot with, Harvey throwing the ball a lot, but I think that makes defense's job easier. You're looking for certain plays, Wildcat, you're looking for power, counter, stretch. That's pretty much it. And then the occasional trick play. So I just hate that you limit the offense and you want to put stress on the defense in those situations. You don't want to make them be able to play fast.
Alan, thoughts?
I mean, I think Gus has a tendency to get a little cute, or he knows his, with whether it's in the red zone or just anywhere on the field offensively. I don't have like a huge problem with it. I mean, for me, like Jordan McDonald, like it depends on the team, right? I think like we all said we looked just bigger and more physical than them. Like if he's experimenting with that against like Oklahoma or Kansas State, that may be a much bigger problem. With Boise, I don't know. I mean, I think it messed up a few red zone opportunities, but I didn't feel.
But Alan, you're discounting something. Remember, Gus is not calling the plays; it's Hinshaw.
Well,
I call that a Gus influence. I think that's Gus.
Yeah, Gus influence is clearly there. I mean, it's definitely.
He's still on the headset, Roger. He's probably like, hey.
Hey, we established last week that he was picking his nose on the head and not on the headset. So
I don't buy that Gus Malzahn is completely out of the play calling for 1 second. Like he's
influencing it a lot though.
Yeah,
I don't think he'll ever give that up. I think he's taking the seat back, let Hinshaw kind of do it. But I think like again, those crunch time moments, he's like pulls that headset down. I want Wildcat, and he might even just say that like I want this, and they're like, okay, coach. And then you just run something. You might
choose the boss at the end of the day.
So, yeah, exactly.
So I thought there was more red zone issues than just that. I mean, we talked about the drops already. I mean, that wasn't a product of the Wildcats. So, it was an issue. I would rather, and maybe it was to protect JRP, which that's good. They do need to protect him. Overall, I think let's see if it keeps happening. For the game against Boise, didn't love it, but I'm a little bit more like neutral towards it. I'm going to see, how that progresses as the season goes on. And now with Timmy in, maybe that changes that whole scheme or that whole strategy up there. So, but I think there was more than just that with the red zone, issues. I saw a couple other things there, especially with the drops, but maybe it was a little bit too cute.
I just hope they call it smothered and covered. If they don't have a play call called smothered and covered, I'll be upset. All right, Josh Lazar, what do you think?
We would not have this conversation if they all worked. We wouldn't, right?
Yeah, but it's been 3 years of this. I mean, before we had that Kentucky transfer quarterback guy that was a 4-star that transferred to yet another one.
Yeah.
Didn't even remember his name.
Joey
Gatewood.
Joey Gatewood.
Yeah. No, and I agree with you.
It was the Joey Gate won't special is what that was.
Do I like it? No. Would I rather just see us run down their throats like we knew we could and did in the third quarter? Yes. Would we be talking as much about it if most of them didn't work, if not all of them? Probably not. But we should just expect this. When we were told, or we had conversations with fans of Auburn, we were told what we should expect, which is QB controversies. O-line, that's iffy. Not happening right now. And cute or trick plays when they're not necessary.
Well, hold on. The O-line was actually the next thing before we moved on to defense, right? Besides CFB, and I'm not talking about college football there. But let's since you mentioned O-line, false starts, bro. Yeah. False starts, and that's on a lot of that's on our center. But it seems like the same guy is committing 72, who is the transfer. Why can't Marcellus Marshall? Yeah, seems like it's on him quite a bit. And Metcalf has been off with his snap counts quite a bit. So some of that's being caused by him. He's either early or late with it. If you really watch what they're doing and what the rest of the offense is expecting, he's not consistent in his snap counts. And granted, he just transferred. He didn't get a whole lot of time with the ones. They just decided who they were going to have do that. So I think there's some room for improvement there as well.
Yeah. And so the knock on Gus was not recruiting a great offensive line. And to be, yes, there's issues. And honestly, there probably should have been more false starts than the ones they got. I mean, if you were watching a
lot more holds too on both sides.
Oh, 100%. So maybe that isn't happening as much. QB controversies are happening or aren't. We know who QB1 is, but we've had 4 other QBs doing pretty decently elsewhere, at least 3 to 4. So there's kind of that. I don't think the O-line thing is real with Gus. At least I think we're doing pretty decent. They need a gel. Yes, we need to get a little better. Yes. And what a great time to have a new quarterback when we're having an offensive line that might jump a little bit too much. So that's going to be interesting to watch too this week. But going back to it, the cute and trick plays were just kind of a part of what Gus does. And do I love seeing it? No. I love it when it works. But, we have the tools. We have 5 running backs. We probably have 5 wide receivers. We have the tools. We have a couple of tight ends pretty darn good. Just run the ball. Just throw it to X, right? You don't need it.
And I think that's the frustration. It's more so, hindsight, of course, when the trick plays work, oh yeah, that was a great trick play. I was so sweet, with so much pizzazz. Yeah. But when they don't, it's like, it's not like we're at a talent deficit
though.
Yeah.
There's no pizzazz.
It's literally just like a little fun trick play.
Well, it's not even that. I mean, every once in a while we'll have a trick play where they'll actually pass the ball. I mean, like the JRP attempted catch last year where we got a PI, which ended up working out for us. But yeah.
My issue is just it's not like we're at a talent deficit at the offensive skill positions. It's not like we don't have enough receivers where we have to steal plays. It's not like we don't have a good enough running back room or tight ends.
It's not like we have to be Memphis.
Yeah, exactly. We don't have to do that. All we need to do is just get the ball to our playmakers and let them make plays. Granted, they had some drops early. But again, I don't think I think we're at a point to where we can just beat teams because we're better than them as long as we're efficient and we take care of the ball and make plays. I don't think there's a lot of teams that are going to beat us because when we're doing that. I think the only way we really lose a lot of games from here on out forward for the rest of our history is going to be we kind of beat ourselves. It's going to be rare where we step on the field and feel that,
oh boy,
okay, that team over there is more talented than us.
We're totally turning into P4 fans now.
I'm
just the better team. We're Charlie Strong in it now. We're the better team.
The reason I say that is because we do. Again, Roger, I've been on the team where we felt like underdog. I can tell you right now, when we watched Auburn, when we played them, we did not think they were better than us. We didn't think overall they had better skill position players. We did better quarterback, better. They had a very good D-line. Now, there are some things where they were big up front. They were ferocious up front. But we didn't think we were so severely outmatched that we're going to lose the game. And I think we're getting to that point where we're starting to recruit players like that. We look bigger on field. And you even alluded to it. We were just like, you know what? Screw it. We're running the ball the whole third quarter. Yeah. They can't stop us. That's how we can win a lot of games because we have those players. And I think when we get cute, we kind of, like I said, it's fun. And in hindsight, when it works, we're all happy. But again, it's like you don't have to do it. And I feel like when we do it at times that just kind of shoot ourselves in the foot. And it's like, why right now? Why
they're drive killers, right?
Yeah, and it's momentum killers too. Exactly. And that's the issue. I don't think I have a problem with the play calling itself. It's just the timing of it is always just, to me, it's not the right time. Yeah.
It's sus.
Yeah.
All right. Now that we've talked that to death, let's talk a little bit about CFB. I'm not talking about college football. On our show notes, it's Colton F and Boomer. So, what are your thoughts on Colton Boomer? You had a pretty good kicker back in the day with Matty Ice. But what do you think about Colton Boomer?
Yeah, I mean, hey, I'm very hard on kickers because to me, I'm like, listen, I've seen you guys practice. I've seen y'all work out in the off season. Y'all are just kicking, hanging out, having fun. But I do know it's a lot of pressure. I do know your things, when you mess up, are magnified times 100. Kind of like DB, you can get beat because of somebody in front of you, but because you're the last line of defense, you're always magnified as why didn't you stop him? So I get it. But he handled his business, man. He was draining some NFL kicks. And I think we mentioned in the chat, that one he made from 56 is probably good from 60, 62. He has a leg on him.
Easy.
Yeah, so I think, those are things that I appreciate because, again, that guy, he's just going out there. He's doing his job. He didn't look flustered. I tried to ice him. Boom, he drained the first one. Came back out there. Boom, drained it again. To me, that just shows a kid that he's not scared of the moment, because I've seen a lot of the Memphis kid when we played him, that AFC, the championship game.
Yeah.
He went out there. I think we blocked it. They got a flag for something because of delay a game. But we could see it in his eyes. He was flustered. He wasn't going to make that next kick because the moment got too big. I don't think that I saw that with Boomer. So I think that's just one of those things, hey, that's props to the kid for that.
He's got confidence. He's kicking bombs and kissing moms for sure.
Oh, yeah.
And you can buy his T-shirt if you want that because he's got a pair of socks that says that too. All right. I want a little bit of that NIL money, Colton. All right, Josh, anything to say about Mr. Boomer?
I'll reiterate what Gus said. He should be perfect in college football. There was one where it wasn't supposed to be snapped or whatever, and it's the one miss he had at 63 or 70 yards or some ridiculous
62 yards. Yeah,
62. Yeah, he should be perfect in college football. He is a phenomenal kicker. He has that confidence. And I will tell you, if you watch that down the pipes, it does that little wiggle in the back end. I'm like, something. So it was
it's a knuckleball. It's a knuckleball.
But I don't think he had any hesitation. I love it's just like Matty Ice, man. Like just ice in his veins, hitting it every time, and the entire team has ultimate confidence in it.
I will say this in our kicking game, I miss Mac Loudermilk. That dude was hilarious. I love that dude. He was amazing. Like, and he's just like that in real life, by the way. Hung out with him before in real life. Like that's like literally who he is. So like, he's one of my favorite. He will always be one of my favorite specialists of all time. Matty Ice, obviously, great kicker in his own right. Aerospace engineer, super smart kid. But yeah, I think when it comes to kickers, you gotta, since you have such little, so few times that you get on the field, you kind of have to have a personality. And Mac has it, and I think Colton has it in spades as well. I'm just waiting for him to like make a kick, take off his helmet, and do the like head and shoulders like head whip. That's what I'm waiting on. You know what I mean? All right, Alan. Any thoughts on Mr. Boomer?
I mean, he's the man. I mean, it's great to go from, when you lose, you really don't think about a kicker too much until you don't have one that's reliable. And when you had Matty Wright for all your, Matty Wright's the school's leading leader in all points and total points scored. To go from that to Daniel Obarski, who was not reliable at all and just wasn't great, you were like, wow, we lost something that was such a key, such a valuable piece of the team. So to have that back again with Colton Boomer, who's missed, one field goal his whole career, and he hit the 55-yarder he hit on Saturday, tied a school record for the longest field goal in UCF history. And then
which Boise's kicker also tied a school record for the longest kick in that game as well.
Yeah, and then, for him to score 12, he had 12 of UCF's 18 points. Yeah. He was the reason we won the game. Let's be honest. He hit a 55-yarder, and then the 40-yard game winner was just cold. To just on the road and it's the first season of the Big 12, a lot of pressure. Boise hadn't lost an opening home game in 21 years. That was the first time they lost a home game as their opener in 21 years. So for Colton Boomer to just nail all of his kicks confident, like you said, with a ton of room to, maybe make it a 61, 62-yarder on that 55-yarder, he did it with ease. The kid's a G, and we're lucky we have him, and he's the reason we won that game. But sometimes it comes down to field goal kicking. So now we have our kicker for the next 2 to 3 years, and I'm excited to have him. And what a gutsy, awesome performance by him.
Awesome. Yeah. And he's friends with Matt Prater, so that's awesome too. That being said, the only other shout out I want to give for this game for the specialists is I do want to give a shout out to whoever Boise's Aussie punter was, because that dude, and he did it not just to us, he did it the previous week at Washington too, was phenomenal. So Boise, hold on to him as long as you can, because he's definitely good, and he's not even kicking rugby style, which is what Aussie kickers are known for, or punters. All right. We talked about Hinshaw's play calling. I'd say, what I'd say about all of that is I think they did a pretty good job with the play calling all around. He came out with the vertical game, and then they were able to switch gears and wear them out with the running game. So 100% we did enough to win the game. Just that was all execution. And I think to Tre's point earlier, I think we would have run up the score had we finished those initial 2 series. All right, defensively, I'll say a few things that I noticed. One, Boise used a heck of a lot of motion pre-snap, and it was confusing the crap out of our DBs. They were sticking with their assignment and not adjusting. So they need, I'm sure they will point that out in the game film. If you watch it, all of the big gains that they had sideline to sideline, there was some sort of pre-snap motion where they're bringing a receiver across the field. Somebody had to check up. Our strong side turned into our weak side, and then someone totally missed their assignment. So that was one thing. Good on Boise, right? Bad on us. That's something that we need to adjust. Gaps early on. Linebackers were not filling gaps. They were missing gaps. They weren't aligned properly. I think they have, a yard to the left or the yard to the right makes the difference between a step and stopping a play and not stopping a play. So they weren't getting to the gaps fast enough to penetrate because our alignments were off. So if you're watching that and wondering why the linebackers were a step behind, it's because our alignments were off. So that's something that we're going to need to work on in coaching. We did not maintain the edge very well early on. I told you guys last week that was a key to this game, given, and they didn't run between the tackles that often. They were getting stuffed up between the tackles. Our D-line, we played a lot of 3-down linemen this time. And when we played those 3 D linemen, we were still getting pressure. People are like, oh, we weren't getting pressure, blah, blah, blah. We were getting pushed around. No, we weren't. Just because they didn't get sacks doesn't mean they weren't getting pressure. He was constantly rolling out of the pocket. The line was moved back. Our guys were disrupting plays for Green and for the other quarterback, whose name I don't even know. They were getting those pressures. We do need to be. They were ISO. They were isolating Celiscar in a lot of different plays and keeping him inside so he couldn't maintain the edge on the outside. So there's some scheme things that need to be worked on from that. However, previous seasons, we always talk about tackles for a loss. We had 8 tackles for a loss in this game. Who would you, just quick poll, who do you guys think the leading, if you haven't seen it, who's the leading tackler this game?
Tremont.
Okay.
Yeah, 3, Morris Brash or Lee Hunter.
Okay.
It's actually D-line. Someone on D-line. It's not Yates. Although I saw him a bunch. I tell you, I love him, but I'm thinking line.
Okay. Jason Johnson, 8 tackles, 4 solos, half a tackle for a loss. Josh Celiscar next, 7 tackles, 4 solos. Walter Yates, 6 tackles, 6 solos, and 1 tackle for a loss. Tremont Morris Brash, 1 sack, 3 tackles for a loss. 4 total tackles. So, when you're talking about 8 plays for tackles for a loss, you're talking about 70 plays. That's 15% of your plays are tackles for a loss. That's pretty good numbers. On top of that, we had 2 sacks, but we disrupted a lot of plays. So I think they did really, really, really well. The defense, our PFF scores, led by the ends. Our edge rushers are doing what they were supposed to be doing, with the exception of maintaining the edge on the plays where they were getting outside. But a lot of that, again, was linebacker alignment and not getting where they needed to be able to push them out that extra few steps to give them time to come up and tackle. So, defensively overall, pretty good game. Held them to 16 points. I think they put 20-something up on Washington the previous week. And again, this would have been a heck of a lot worse if we were forcing them in passing downs because they were playing from behind. So linebackers have some work to do. Ryan Davis has some work to do. He did not play well. Malachi Lawrence played pretty well. He had another sack this week. So, we heard a lot about him last year, and he seems to be living up to his billing this year. So that's all I have on defense. What do you think, Tre, for your side? Anything that you saw?
Yeah, I mean.
Oh, the interception too.
By Thornton, yeah.
But by the way, top-rated DB, Corey Thornton. So all those people complaining about Corey Thornton all the time, this game, he played pretty well. And that one tip too. Talk about that one tip too, because that was not an easy play to make when they tipped that ball.
Yeah. I thought Thornton played pretty well. I thought they overall did play well. Again, you look and see the score, it's such a tight game. Something's got to go wrong. No, it's just, again, the untimely turnovers, or we're probably blowing them out. The numbers look a lot better because they're in pass-heavy situations. But overall, I think the only thing that I noticed that could be possibly an issue going forward is the communication with the motion. A lot of motion most of the time now, that's what they do it for. They want you to mess up your communication.
That's why Frost did it.
Absolutely. Yes. It's to mess up your communication, because when you're running on the fly and somebody comes running full speed, you might not be supposed – are we bumping it? Are we taking them? Are we switching it? And if we're both guarding the same guy, well, then somebody's winning wide open. And I think that's actually kind of the thing that happened on the touchdown early on the wheel route by the running back. They motioned. I don't know if guys were supposed to bump. I don't know if guys were supposed to run. I don't know how it's communicated. But that's really the reason why you motion. And I've noticed that I think Kent State did a little bit of it early. But Boise did a lot of it. And I think
State did a lot more delayed handoffs.
Yeah.
That's what they were doing.
Mm-hmm. And really you do, like I said, you do the motion to throw off the defense. A lot of it's just dressing they're not really changing the play that's called. They're just trying to either ID something that the defense is doing or mess up what their coverage assignments, gap assignments, things like that, so they can kind of steal plays. So I think that's the main thing that we have to clean up, because I think once you put that on film, that's kind of how I see it. If you put it on film that you struggle with it, the first thing you can expect next week is another team to do it. It's a copycat league. Then you're going to hear that forever. If Boise can score on this, as Villanova, as Baylor, hey, if we can get us a cheap touchdown because UCF can't communicate, let's steal us a cheap touchdown.
And remember this too. We are going to get Villanova's best shot because we're one of their premier games. So like we used to think of like getting Clemson on our schedule or getting like Alabama on our schedule or Georgia on our schedule. The thing people have to remember now, every G7 team, that gets us now, or any FCS team, they're going to be like what we were doing with Kent State and staying vanilla and not really game planning against them. They're doing that against other teams, and they're game planning for us.
Yeah. So, and a lot of the main reason is, at least for the players' part, if you have aspirations of playing in the NFL, the first games that they take are against your best opponents. So those Kent State guys, the Villanova guys, if they have any aspirations of playing in the NFL, those scouts are going to go to that tape versus UCF, because that's probably the only game they're going to play all year where that's where the most NFL talent is. Let's see how you match up against those NFL guys. So they're always going to be giving their best shot in those games. So that's why I'm just like, we should beat them, but don't take them lightly. I think the one I remember the most was the Austin P year. They weren't really. I mean, talent-wise, they shouldn't have even been on the field with us. It shouldn't have been a close game. We should have beat them 100-0.
That was the Healy effect, which, by the way, Healy is now on our team. That head coach that you guys played against is now an offensive assistant for us.
Yeah, and again, like we were just like, hey, let's take it easy. Not overall. We want to still be locked in, but we're going to take a few hits off your body during the week. We're going to end practice a little early because, again, I think we had earned it at the time, but we didn't prepare how we should have prepared with that, earning that.
So let me ask you this. Is there anything that you guys were doing when you were going against Frost's offenses with all that motion as a defense that helped you guys overcome those motion issues?
The only thing that we would do, so Pat Jasinski, and Kyle Gibson, because we talk the most as far as being linebackers and safeties, we would talk a lot pre-snap. So we became so well versed with talking to each other, we almost talked until the ball was snapped. So we would say, hey, you get this motion, we're doing this. You get this motion, we're doing this. If he stops, goes back, we're staying. If he stops, goes back, if he clears the center, that's when we're going to motion swing. We call it swinging. But it's a lot of pre-snap stuff and communication that you have to do so that when it happens, you're not caught off guard. That's the only thing that I really could say could possibly help them is just, hey, we're lined up in this formation. This is the call. If we get this motion, we're rolling to this. And you tell everybody on the back end, because once everybody kind of thinks it and and they hear it, it's like, okay, I get this motion, I'm going to this. But if you don't hear it and you see this motion, and you're just like, what do I have to do? It's too late. You don't have time. Coach Chin, that's what he used to always tell us. When the game is playing, you don't have time to think. You're just reacting. And if you're trying to think, then react, that split second of thinking, like Roger said, that's the difference in making the play and giving up a touchdown. I think that's how fast the game has become. So a lot of it that can be solved would be pre-snap and kind of knowing what to expect or what to come and kind of eliminating those issues before they happen. And then a lot of that's really in the film room, doing film with each other. I don't know how much they communicate, safety to linebacker to up front, things like that. But however their communication goes, you just got to kind of watch film and see. What we used to do, we just go through like a game and be like, all right, this is the call. What are we going to do? Boom. We all talk like we were playing in the film room. And it makes it so much easier when you get to the game when you do that.
Awesome. All right. Gentlemen, did you have anything else that you wanted to say about the defense? Josh? All right, cool.
Let's keep going.
All right, so moving on. Let's talk a little bit about Villanova. So, Alan, I'm going to let you go talk a little bit about Villanova, and then I'll follow up as well with any commentary that I have.
Yeah, I mean, it's our annual FCS game. UCF obviously historically, as most FBS teams do, pretty well in these situations. It's at home. It's nice that, we've already mentioned, but it's nice that, this is going to be Timmy's first game, get a nice tune-up game before we start conference play. I mean, the only thing is here, just don't look ahead to the big game we have coming up, take this game seriously. But Villanova for FCS isn't bad. They're 2-0. They've beaten the brakes off the last two teams they've played. They've racked up a ton of yards. I've been, looking, they had, I think 40 plus points in both of their first two games. So they seem to be a strong team, but I think this one we're just going to out athlete them, as you see in most of these FBS versus FCS contests. But there's really not much to say about this game. I mean, it should be another kind of like a Kent State type of situation. Pretty easy for us. We'll get off to a fast start, hopefully. Timmy will look good, probably run it down their throat and just kind of out athlete them. And maybe some of the mistakes that we mentioned today on the defense or on the offense side, maybe they get those cleaned up a little bit. But it is nice to kind of, we got over our first big test, which was Boise. And now we have a nice, really nice path here to start out 3-0 and head into conference play undefeated, which is great. Great start of the season. I think there was a chance that we could have started out 2-1. So to get pretty much have a guaranteed win coming up is really good. And but yeah, I mean, I think we all know how this one's going to go.
Yep.
All right, I agree with that. A little bit of trivia for you guys. For those of you that were around for the Big East days when the Cows managed to successfully keep us out the first go round, their pick for the Big East was to elevate Villanova. So they wanted them to invest in their football program to bring it up to D1 level and invite them to the Big East instead of us. So kind of funny now that the Cows are left in the AAC and Villanova's a bye game for us. So, interesting turn of events. And amazing what a decade or so will do for that difference. Now, as far as Villanova is concerned, their QB, they are racking up a lot of yards. Their yards per attempt is ridiculous. Their QB is a 61% passer, so not that great. I don't know if they're just chucking it up there. More than not, I haven't watched any film on them. He's got 4 TDs, 1 interception, so a lot of his yards are just yards, and then they're handing the ball off to try to get it through the red zone. He's got 1 interception. He's been sacked 5 times for 30 yards. 2 names to look out for on their side of the ball is Pringle and Sanchez. Those are their top 2 wide receivers. Both of them, one has over 200 yards, so they're averaging over 100 yards per game. The other one is right there, so that's almost 400 yards of offense in 2 games. For 2 players. That tells you they're catching a lot of deep balls. They are averaging 40 points per game, as Alan said. They're not afraid of fourth downs. So they're 33% on third, which means chances are we'll get them off the field, but they will go for it on fourth downs. They're 3 for 3 on the season. They are +4 on turnovers. So considering it's 2 games, we need to make sure that we're holding on to the ball, that we're not passing the ball to people, that we're not doing the little things to make sure we're maintaining ball control and not getting turnovers. They played Lehigh and Colgate for their previous wins. So again, this is an FCS team. I'll say the same thing that I said in Kent State. If we're not flooring them, I'd be disappointed. And it'll be good for Timmy to get his feet wet while not having too much pressure. So get him back into the flow of the game to get ready for Kent State. So with all that being said, that's really the game preview. Josh has one more piece of trivia, and then we'll give you our pick your poison score prediction. So Alan, while Josh is going, if you will pick up last week's results, which we're all completely off.
So one other note, their head coach has only been their head coach since 2017, Mark Ferrenti. But how long do you think? I have 2 pieces of trivia. How long do you think he's been a coach at Villanova? By years, just a coach, not the head coach.
Well, you said he was. So you were saying head coach since 2017?
He's head coach since 2017, but he's been a coach at Villanova longer. How long has he been a coach at Villanova?
I don't know.
I'll go 15 years.
I was going to say 20.
I was going to say 8.
36 years. He's been coaching at Villanova since 1987.
Wow.
Yeah.
I only got that big promotion.
Yeah. There's that. And what Villanova alumni, maybe more than one, but one that you probably well know, won a Super Bowl?
I don't even have the slightest clue.
I'll give you that one. Howie Long.
Oh. Howie
Long, Villanova alumni football player. I think it was on second team All-American or something, not full All-American, but whatnot. And Villanova's ranked top 25 in FCS. This is, yes, I agree with what Roger's saying, but they're not a South Dakota rankings yet, right? But they're doing all right. So yeah, that's a couple of things I was looking up. I'm like, I didn't know that.
All right, there you go. Random facts with Josh Lazar. All right. Alan, what were our score predictions from last week? I'm not saying that. I'm saying that in jest. So I expect you to come up with some random facts about K-State next week. Maybe they manufacture cow manure or something. I don't know. Whatever it is that
I'll find something
you come up with. All right, Alan, how did we do last week?
So Roger, you had UCF 42 and Boise 28. Tre had UCF 37, Boise 21. Josh had UCF 38, Boise 24, and I had UCF 34, Boise 24. So by my calculations, I believe me and Tre tied for the closest. I mean, obviously we were still pretty far off. Although Tre's Boise score was only 5 points off than what they had. It was more so our UCF scores were way higher, but I think Tre and me tied because I had 24 for Boise, at 21, but he had 37 for UCF, and I had 34, which was the lowest number UCF number out of all of us. So I think we tied there, but obviously we were pretty far. I don't think many of us expected a 18-16 type of game.
Yeah,
both sides. Like I expect both of us to score more. Honestly.
Yeah.
I think that's what we call to bring back a segment from Nightline, the unforced hot take of the week. So, all right. So with that being said, let's roll into this week's game. So pick your poison and give us your score prediction. Alan, let's start with you.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the poison that I would say here is just like Timmy just looks absolutely awful and gives us no confidence going into, a big game against a ranked Kansas State team on the road in our first ever Big 12 game. I think we all know that that's one of the games on our schedule that we at least have a decent shot of losing. It's going to be a tough environment against a ranked opponent. Welcome to the Big 12. Your first ever game is against the defending Big 12 champions. So for Timmy to come out, I don't know, have a few turnovers and just generally look not that good, even if we inevitably win by 40, 50, 60 points, him not looking good in this game is not going to bode well for our first Big 12 game. And as far as the score, I think we go 60 this week, so I'm going to go 63-6.
Wow, 63-6. All right. Josh Lazar, what are you thinking? What's your poison?
So my poison this week is giving them any hope. Not that I feel like they're going to win, but I don't want them to have even an inkling like there's a chance that the 2s and 3s aren't coming in the third and fourth quarter. And last week, my keys were pretty much dead on. Come out strong, contain 2, and protect the football. We did none of them. So hopefully the keys this week are being fundamentally sound, and putting the pedal to the metal early are actually going to happen. I want to go that high, but it is still something new. I'm going 48-10. I mean, 60 is a lot, and I hope I am wrong. I think they're going to score 1 or 2. I think we're going to score a lot. I think it really depends on turnovers, because we're not doing great on that side of the ball, right? We're negative a bunch. We're not +4 like Villanova is, but hopefully we get closer to even by the end of the week.
All right, Tre, what's your poison?
My poison would have to be kind of like what Alan was saying. Just Timmy just doesn't look good. And of course, I think just the talent's going to beat it out, where we can still probably potentially score 50, 60 points. But you'll know if there's no chemistry, offense looks sluggish, dumb mistakes, false start. If everything just kind of just looks bad, especially now going into week 3, I think that's the worst thing possible for me, poison-wise. My score prediction, I'm going to go on the lower end. I'm going to go 49-7. I think maybe they get one later. I think defensively they're going to come out strong, because I think they know that, hey, we lost JRP. We got to – we have great Timmy. He's really a good player too, but I think just as a defense, when your quarterback goes down, naturally you're just like, we got to step up as a unit and kind of carry. So I think they're going to put out a good showing. I think maybe they sneak one. It could be off of a turnover from offense. It could be a special teams error. It could be anything, one big play you can score. So I think they may sneak one, but I think the defense is going to have a good showing. So I'll go 49-7.
All right, awesome. Yeah, my poison for this week's going to be the O-line. They need to get their crap together before we play Kansas State. And by that, I mean, stop jumping off sides. Drake, figure out the snap count. And I think that's the only poison that we have. I don't think that we're going to go crazy with Timmy. I think Timmy is, I think we're going to go vanilla with him. And I have a feeling he's going to be running a lot just to get him used to getting hit again. So based on the way they moved the ball against Kent State, that one quarter he was in, they could throw the 2s out there, and I think they're going to score probably 52 points. So I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna say, for my prediction, because they are FCS, higher end FCS, I think that's better than what Kent State was because of their situation. I'm gonna say 48-10. Good guys, obviously. So that's going to be my prediction for this week. All right, now that we've got that done, let's go. Huh?
It's a good one.
Was that the one
You
you
and
had
Josh
to?
have the same prediction.
Oh, well, then I'm going to say 52-10. Just to one-up you, Josh.
All right.
because I hate when that happened. Ben used to do that to me all the time on Nightline. So I don't want to do that this time. So 52-10, good guys. Timmy doesn't show
10,
much.
right?
Yeah. Yep. Only because Josh had 48-10. All right. So I'm going to put an asterisk on that one. All right. Moving on, the next quick segment we have is the Big 12 recap. So, Alan, I'm going to let you tell us how the Big 12 did this week.
All right. So, Big 12 did pretty good. Overall, the league went 10-4. There's a couple decent wins. Kansas beat Illinois, so they beat a fellow Power 5 team. Obviously, we beat Boise. The 4 losses, I'll just start with that because there was only 4. But number 12 Utah was able to beat Baylor, so Baylor is not off to the best start to their season. Then the other losses were Iowa beat their rivals in Iowa State, and then
but we weren't expecting much. We weren't expecting much out of Iowa State. They just had that big scandal where half their team got kicked off for gambling. So I wasn't expecting much out of that.
Yeah, I mean, so the Utah Baylor loss wasn't that surprising. Obviously, the Iowa State was, and Oregon beat Texas Tech. Number 13 Oregon beat Texas Tech. Not a big surprise there. The big surprise.
The big surprise was Texas Tech should have won that game. That was the big surprise. They were leading.
Well, it's not surprising that they lost, though, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying, too. I'm saying the big surprise is they should have won that game because we weren't expecting them to win that game. So for me, the big surprise is they should have won it and gave it away at the end.
Right. The big the most notable loss was Houston lost in double overtime to Rice. So 2 former conference mates of ours, and Rice got a 43-40 win over Houston. But some other notable wins, Texas beat Alabama. So that was obviously a big win. Oklahoma State beat Arizona State. Cincy beat Pitt, even though Pitt was favored by 7. So Cincy beat Pitt on the road. So they're off to a 2-0 start with their new coach. And then the rest of the wins were a lot of FCS type stuff. Oklahoma beat SMU, so former conference mate of ours as well.
FCS.
But what was that?
I said FCS win.
Oh, yeah. But most of the other wins were essentially either G5s or G7 and FCS, pretty much all of them. So, but the conference did well. Some Power 5 wins. Obviously, Texas beating Alabama. That's always good for our conference, even though they're on the way out. And other than that, the conference went 10-4 as a whole. So right now we have 8 undefeated teams left in the Big 12. Yeah,
and Alabama, their quarterback was not good. So I wouldn't be surprised if they switch quarterbacks. And then for Cincinnati, on the flip side of that, their quarterback's doing a lot better than what was expected. So that game's actually going to be tougher than I think all of us thought it was going to be. Which in a way is a good thing, but in a way it's not. So, still proud. I will tell you this. I've watched more conference games on Saturdays in this conference than I've had in any other. And I'm not quite the SEC fan that's yelling SEC at a football game. But I am rooting for all of the Big 12 teams to win. So that's pretty cool too. Being able to actually flip the channel and care about a game and hope that they win instead of having to worry about, hey, we got to go undefeated to even have a sniff at the playoff. So I think that's something, another sign of the P4 and being part of the Power 4 now. Is that I think our mindset as a fan base, has changed. It's, hey, we can root for the other teams because we don't have to go undefeated. All right. Anything else from Tre or Josh on the Big 12?
Yeah, I was saying earlier, I watched the end of that Texas Tech game, and it's same deal. I was like, oh, geez. The Rice game, that wasn't even a close one. And Rice, didn't get blown out by Texas, and that was their first game. So I don't know. We'll see what Houston's up to, but I've
losing. That's what they're up to. They're losing.
They're losing, guys. I've always watched our conference mates often, and then part of it might be because of one of the organizations I was in when I was at UCF had chapters at ECU and other places that were pretty big. So I'm used to watching that, but it's nice to see people in your conference not only playing, but like they're playing big games and they're usually doing good things. So there's a little difference between like watching ECU play NC State and like, oh, maybe they'll win, and specifically because there was an organization that's a very big chapter in ECU. So I know all the fun stuff we've had with conference mates, but there's a little difference between ECU versus NC State and like Oregon and Texas Tech, right? So I love it. I love everything.
Yeah, there's a lot more tortillas thrown at the Tortilla Tech game than there is at
a lot more barbecue at ECU, like pig on roast. Yeah, that's more ECU stuff.
And I will say this, and I know you guys, I know I mentioned this before, but I do like Carolina style barbecue, so I'm just gonna put that.
Oh yeah.
All right, Trey. Anything on the Big 12's performance?
No, I mean, again, I've always wanted to perform well because when we eventually beat those teams, it makes us look better. So I was rooting for Texas to beat Alabama, even though technically they're going to be in the SEC.
Everybody hates Bama outside of Bama fans. So.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, that's always been my thing. You know, I want our conference to be strong because I want to play good teams. I want to, challenge ourselves and have those ranked wins on their schedule and those big time games on your schedule. Kind of like when the Peach Bowl year, when I think Memphis beat a UCLA team that was highly ranked early. We're like, okay, well, if they can beat that UCLA team, and then we went out and blew Memphis out, it's like, well, how good are we? And I think those are the kind of confidence things that, that you kind of get from judging how you play against the guys in your conference. So I always want the conference to do well.
That was the year that Memphis landed the plane and then left, right?
Yeah, and they left.
How did y'all
you
feel
see why they left?
No, how did y'all feel about that? Like, legitimately, how did y'all feel about? Because I'll tell you, Memphis, if I was on the field, they'd be on the butt of every joke that I could possibly throw at them. Man, y'all really landed the plane and then turned around and left.
Yeah, so we were mad about it just because, we wasted a whole week preparing, and then there was the whole hurricane situation, I believe.
Yeah.
So I think they made everybody, just because of the hurricane, they made all the football teams stay in Towers, which is the athlete dorm. And nobody wants to do that because everybody else got to go home. Everybody else got to go be safe away from wherever, the hurricane. We stayed. Then we didn't play. It's like, man, we could have freaking went home and did what we, so it left a sour taste in our mouth. But we knew then that they were scared of us. I think that gave us a lot of confidence that, because we were a young team. Mackenzie was young. We were young. We had just beat Maryland. So we were like, we kind of didn't know what we were doing, quote unquote. We were just having fun. But once we realized, hey, they didn't want to play you guys. And they were Coach Frost and the staff. They kind of fed that to us, which kind of gave us a little edge. These guys didn't want to play us. When we play them, I think it was a couple of weeks later, we're going to give it to them. And I think we did. And I think we woke up a lot of people that game too.
It's like 40-17 or something ridiculous thing.
Yeah. It was a good game.
All right. So with all that being said, let's go ahead and pivot to our last segment. Folks, you've almost made it all the way through. Our UCF Sports update. So women's soccer 4-2 just shut out the Cows 2-0. My brother was there. Josh Lazar was there. He was training his daughter correctly. There's an awesome video of that. I don't know if he'll share it on his socials, but he should. After a great second half, because the first one was pretty terrible. Yeah. And they have West Virginia U up next. So another Big 12 foe. Kind of a weird situation because they do have women's soccer in the Big 12, but they do not have men's soccer in the Big 12. So we're actually playing in the Sun Belt Conference for men's soccer. Men's soccer, however, is number 6 in the country after defeating FIU, who was number 11 in the country, believe it or not. They always have a strong soccer team. Yeah. And they are now 4-0-1, and they also defeated number 4 Clemson, and they also have West Virginia on deck. So they'll be playing West Virginia because West Virginia plays men's soccer as well and is also in the Sun Belt with us. So we have another Big 12 in the Sun Belt with us. And last but not least, women's volleyball, number 28. They just got bumped up in the rankings, beat FSU and UTSA. So they are now 8-1. They've got lots of P5 wins, and they have Purdue up next. And it's funny because I don't know how you guys feel about this, but with the other sports, it always used to be, we were competitive against other P5 teams. But now that we are a P5 team, it's almost like it's expected. It's like, to me, like Purdue, not as big of a game. We should be wiping the floor with them after a complete rebuild with the volleyball team, by the way. But I don't know. It's just a different feeling for me now seeing those other teams on there. It's like, okay, we should be playing them and we should be beating them. So the expectations have been, we talk about in football how 2017, 2018 raised expectations. I think for me in the other sports, it's been raised as well. So any commentary on any of that from you guys?
Well, I talked a little bit about the women's soccer. It's briefly. I posted on, and I think I added the women's soccer team on my on the corner. So the first half was not great. We were giving up the ball a lot, and actually, I think the women's team have a couple of their players that need to get back on the field too. So there's reasons for some of that, but. The first goal just kind of came out of nowhere, and it was wonderful. And then once that, just like I was talking about on the football side, once they see something getting in the back of the net, they put on pressure. So I filmed one of the corners when they were starting to pour on the pressure, and my daughter was like yelling. It was cute, and I got it. It was a wide shot, but I got it. It was almost the same shot that the actual soccer team put out. And it was fun. It's on my socials, but at Josh Lazar on Twitter X. But yeah, it was a great and fun game, and it was wonderful. And I will tell you, I agree with your expectations, but I still think there's layers to it, right? Just like O'Leary said, there's the check cashers and everyone else, right? There's still the check cashers and everyone else in every conference, even in the P4. I'm not going to say 5. You had to have an injunction to not have your conference decimated. You're not a conference in the P5 after this year.
Well, the conference is already decimated. Dissolved is the right word.
It's fair. So I still excited to see Purdue's and FSU's and things like that. And I think it just may be a little heightened when I want to see women's soccer go to UNC and do well, or Stanford, in the upper echelons of those sports. That's kind of where my fan mentality has gotten to.
Awesome. All right. I agree. I think expectations have risen. The Purdue's of the world don't excite us anymore, but the play should. Our Olympic sports have raised their game, just like softball. Expectations have raised. So make sure that you're out there supporting the team because they deserve it, and they're going to put on a good show, and they win an awful lot. So highly ranked teams, go out there and watch them. They deserve your applause. They deserve it. And they're visible on TV. If you're away, you can find all the games on ESPN Plus, etc. now. So that being said, that will wrap it up for this show. So we have Villanova next week. And looking forward to another good tailgating experience for everyone, and definitely no threat of a hurricane, so that's better too. Let's have a great week. Go Knights. Like, subscribe, make sure you follow us, make sure you're telling your friends. Thank you for the support, and of course we're always open to any type of feedback that you have, because we're trying to make the show better. So go Knights and charge on.
Charge on.